Welcome back to Whitt Acres. Today we're going to be cleaning up the pond bank. I just let Mumbles and the ducks out to the field pond, so they're out in the grass foraging. We just started to get the grass greening up here now that we're getting some rain. I'm going to have to mow here soon. But the grass is growing more places than just the yard. The bank here is getting overgrown and looking pretty messy. The pugster butterfly bush is still blooming here, but the hostas are all finished up, so it's time to get those cut back. The sunflowers are finished here, and the goldfinches have them pretty much stripped. And the gladiola is done as well. There's only a few spots of orange in there from the cosmos and the calendula. Huh, Pop? You're always right on my heel, buddy. You watching the fish? We got Goldie Hawn in there swimming with Dorothy and Yang. We do need to get another Betty White Jr., huh, Pop? Yeah. But it's time I get the pond bank cleaned up here and switched over for the fall season. I have a little bit of algae on the waterfalls here, but otherwise pretty good. And there's a couple volunteer portulaca blooming in there. I'm going to leave those go. And we're still getting a few blooms off this batch of sunflowers, so I'm going to have to leave those ones go. Mom's not going to like that though. Let's step over here. Huh, Pop, you want to help? Get in there and start weeding. I gotta get this Chinese forget-me-not out of here. It's covered in spiky balls. It gets all connected to Echo Pup's fur here, and then it gets all over me, gets in my house, so we gotta get all that cleaned up here. And we did have a few volunteer zinnias pop up as well. Now, Pop. And speaking of volunteers, we have some more snapdragons blooming over here. One in the steps there. This hosta is all finished up. We have more snapdragons across in the cracks. We're also getting a couple rose blooms out of the rose bed here, even though it looks real bad. We still have a couple blooming in there. And then down here in the corner, we had some volunteers. Some Love Lies bleeding amaranth as the tall stuff draping down. Huh, Pop, do you find those Chinese forget-me-not seeds? Yes, you did, buddy. Yes, you did. Good boy. That's how things get spread, huh? And that's how we get some volunteers here. We got some coxcomb down there as well. More amaranth and zinnias are blooming out here in the sidewalk cracks, as well as just coming straight out of the gravel. So I'm just letting those go because they're the only color I have. Can't complain about those volunteers. But I do want to get the perennials cut back here on the ramp bed, try and get that cleaned up a little bit. Oh, the geyser. Huh, Pop, you're on the beach again. But we have another butterfly bush over by the greenhouse. That's the kaleidoscope. Huh, Pup, what about this willow? We have this willow growing out of the intake bay here. It's probably starting to root pretty far down into the stone. I want to get this out into the landscape, but since we've been having that drought, there was just no way it was going to survive out in the landscape planted. I don't really water anything, so whenever we don't get any rain, it makes it hard to plant things. I think a good place for that would be out next to the field pond for now, but I'd like the water level to get high enough to where it's gonna be so I could plant it right on the edge. But I might have to get that out of this pond before I get that pond full. Because at this point, it's a pretty good sized tree. Look at the trunk on that. Whenever I put these in here in the spring, they're the size of a number 2 pencil. Oh, you can see how much it wants to root into the water. They're just coming right out of the bark. So yeah, that's gonna be interesting pulling this one out. Huh, Pop? But I just want to get the perennials cut back here, get the garden weeded out, and try and get this cleaned up for the fall season. Huh, Pop? Yeah, that branch is still just hanging there. And it's kind of cooling off right now. The 4 o'clocks are already starting to open. And I'm definitely going to be using the gloves to get the garden weeded here. Oh, the geyser again. All right, we got to stop getting distracted. Time to get started. Alright guys, this is the next day and we're getting back out here in the garden. I didn't have time to finish this up last night. It got pretty late and I had to eat dinner and close up the barn. But yesterday I was able to come across the pond bank here and get it all hand weeded out. So going in there hand weeding allows me to get all the undesirables out there and leave all the plants that I want to keep in. So I was able to get all these excess vines out of there, all the spent Chinese forget-me-not and annuals that were finishing up, and a lot of the grass and weeds that have been growing in here. It's looking a lot cleaner in here. There's still some weeds growing in there and I'm going to take a hoe in there and try and scrape all that clean. And I did leave the sunflowers for now because they are still blooming. The bees are still enjoying them. There's a bee right there. And a lot of the birds are still coming in here getting the seeds that are finishing up. So I'm going to leave those go for a little bit longer. And this group is still blooming pretty good. But I got my garden wheelbarrow out here so I can get all these weeds, everything I pulled out, cleaned up and put into the compost. And they are calling for a lot of rain here tonight into tomorrow from Tropical Storm Debbie. So I'm gonna get these weeds cleaned up. I wanna get some more of these perennials cut back and get this pond bank cleaned up a little bit more. I wanna get these hostas cut back, get the gladiolas cut back, get all those bamboo supports out of there, get the perennials in the ramp bed cut back, and this rose bed cleaned up if I can. I just cleaned out this gutter because everything that comes down this downspout actually goes into a sump pit and then the geyser pumps that into the pond. So I want to make sure that one's clean so I can collect as much of the rainwater as I can. The pergola's looking pretty good with those volunteer sunflowers. And underneath the 9 bark, we do have a few perennials I want to cut back, and there is some weeds I want to pull out of there, but it's pretty much taken over by 4 o'clock, so I'm fine with that. Oh, the geyser! I love watching the water drop. Hump up. So I'm going to try and get these few things done here because I do want to still get some weed whacking done tonight and get everything mowed before we get this rain tomorrow. All right, let's get started. Hump pop. right, Echo Pup, that's all we have time for. We made some good progress here today, though. I got the pond bank cleaned up here pretty nicely. Got some weed whacking done as well. We cleaned up all this outside area and the ramp bed. And I'm gonna have to do the rose bed another time. I'm running out of daylight here to get the yards mowed. So that's gonna be all for this one. I really need to get the yards mowed before we get all this rain from Tropical Storm Debbie. If you want to keep following along with everything here at Whitt Acres, make sure to subscribe down below. Hit that like button before you leave and you can see me and Echo on the next one. Thanks for watching. Cool.